Having ended Falkirk's 43-game unbeaten run back in September, Raith Rovers now have a similar task at hand as they visit Grangemouth on Saturday. With only Falkirk beating the Bairns at Almond Vale since, it's once again up to the Rovers to try and burst Falkirk's impressive home record. This is the Oh No 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 podcast. I'm your host tonight, Robbie Weir, and delighted to be joined firstly by Allan Douglas-One. Allan, can hear the screaming Bairns in the background. Hopefully not so much of that on Saturday.
Well, hopefully the Bairns are very upset on Saturday. That's but no, yeah, it's
a beautiful segue.
Looking forward to the weekend and ending another one of Falkirk's records.
Fingers crossed. Got Carol Smith. How are you doing, Carol?
I'm doing fine, thanks for asking. Looking forward to taking in yet another Falkirk scalp at the weekend.
And that's straight away, I mean, for anyone watching, that's what, a minute in and you can get your first clipping in there from the Falkirk persuasion. And then, of course, we've got Scott Fleming. How are you doing, Scott?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Obviously, after Monday night, we kind of watched the draw live when we were recording, and yeah, I think we're going to get quite familiar with Falkirk over the next 2 months. I think we're playing them back-to-back weeks in January, obviously playing them this weekend as well. So we're going to be seeing more of John McGlynn and co in the next few weeks and coming.
Yeah, so we better get some good practice on about these pre-match podcasts, I guess. So before we begin, we are delighted to announce that we ourselves at the Oh No 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 podcast were contacted by a couple of very generous listeners recently. You've probably seen that we did have before in front of our episodes that we have been looking for sponsors, but these individuals have basically came across and they've offered to cover the running costs of the podcast. And they said instead of promoting their business, what they've actually asked is if we can just promote some local charities. So tonight we can actually announce the first of these as being Kirkcaldy Foodbank. Now, over the Christmas period, the Foodbank are going to be running a campaign during the festive period, effectively to support those in needs, whether it's individuals, couples, or families. We got some really sobering stats through from Danny, who basically is in charge of the marketing over that Kirkcaldy Foodbank, and she was saying that in 2023 alone, they provided food for over 368,000 meals and had over 19,000 visits. That's just in Kirkcaldy alone. So the food bank's basically going to be offering people the chance to buy vouchers to sponsor the cost of a food parcel. These are going to be done at different levels. What we'll do is we're going to include basically more information in the notes for the show. So if you do want to find out more information, we would strongly encourage you. I know that times are tight for people, but at the same time, brilliant cause. We really want to obviously help and support our partners moving forward. So yeah, to find out more, please check the show notes. You can get a bit of a background about it and the great work that they do. Obviously, you'll have seen sort of stuff like the donations before, the drives that have been done through the club, and we want to really further extend that. So we'll have a bit more about that on our social medias. We will have a bit more going forward in terms of before or during our podcast. And as well, we will have a couple of other charities as well that we're sort of working with at the moment just to get things going. So more on that in the future. Also as well, just to extend our congratulations to a person who's been on a couple of times. Kev Bretto has been appointed the Emotional Wellbeing Officer at the Raith Rovers Community Foundation. So obviously Kev's a friend of the podcast, been on a few times. He's got a wealth of experience in terms of his background before. He's worked in mental health, so that was absolutely brilliant to see. Allan, you sitting near Kev at Starks Park, just a word for the big man.
Oh no, he's a great guy, really nice guy, and I think, yeah, like you say, the kind of experience he brings and just the kind of person he is, he will bring a lot to the foundation, and I think it'll be good for him. You know, I think he's recently retired from his kind of full-time job, so it kind of gives something for him to kind of focus on, but also he will do an awful lot of good for them, and hopefully see some good things coming out of that.
Yeah, fully agree. And I would expect we'll sort of have talks to see what we can do to try and help further that as much as possible. Obviously, with mental health being such a key topic at the moment for so many people, and to offer that support. So yeah, on to Rovers related news, and a bit of a surprise one. That came during the week. Raith Rovers have signed Jordan Doherty, who is going to be available from January. Irish utility player, shall we say, because can't really pin him down to one position. He's based on what we've heard, he's been all over the place in terms of the pitch. Be familiar with Neill Collins because they were both together at Tampa Bay Rowdies in the NASL, I think it is, Championship over in America. Scott, just in general, what were your thoughts when you saw that come through?
Yeah, it was. It seemed to be something that actually I can't remember who it was, but somebody had popped it in the podcast group chat about a week ago, saying that they'd seen his name linked with coming to Scotland anyway. And obviously, because it was from Tampa Bay as well, everyone's like, well, Neill Collins has been there, managed there, and we were certain that he had managed Doherty as well. So we're like, well, it depends what sort of level this guy's been linked with, but there wasn't really anything else other than that. And then obviously it just kind of came out the blue, as you say, and I'm more than happy for this. And I did say at the time when Collins came in, this is the sort of signing I thought might be coming in terms of somebody coming from America that he's worked with. I said it would have to work in terms of visas, but with him being for Ireland and stuff like that, that's not going to be too much of an issue with them not being too far away. But it's also an 18-month deal, which makes it even more the fact that Collins clearly likes the guy. I think if it was somebody that he'd either worked only a little bit with or somebody that was kind of playing for a deal, it might have only been till like the end of the season sort of thing. But the fact that we've kind of nailed it down to a season and a half, to be honest, I think it's even better also that he's came in now. Some folk might even think that this is going to end up being in a couple months' time he's burnt out because he's already played a full season. To be honest, this could be like his break / pre-season now, and then he gets into January and he's already trained with the team for 3-4 weeks and getting to know how we play. He'll know how Collins probably wants to play, but just how his teammates are and stuff like that, and adapt to seeing how the Scottish Championship is up close, because it is pretty unique, some of the games and grounds that you go to. So no, I'm overall I'm fairly positive about it, but again, you're never going to judge somebody until they kick a ball really for your club.
Yeah, I mean, the last player that we signed that had experience from that league, and I keep harping on about this point, is that it was Sam Stanton, who was playing over in, I think it was Phoenix Rising or some club in Arizona, I think it was. Carol, do you think, again, just to go back to Scott's point there, it's a very valid point as well. Jordan Doherty's obviously came across, this could be a time that he could just be off kicking up his feet on a beach somewhere, but instead he's decided to come to Kirkcaldy from Miami. Bit of a got to give the guy some credit for his drive there to be willing to do that. Yeah.
And in the Raith TV interview, Davey was definitely trying to sell the Kirkcaldy seafront by offering open water swimming. As someone who has open water swam in that area at this time of year, it's a little bit cold, so it could be a good adaptation for him. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, it is really good that it means in January he'll hit the ground running. He knows how the team works. He knows how the league works. He knows silly things like how the club works, how like stupid things like how the dressing room works, how what the schedule is, etc. He's already embedded in that. So when it comes to just being put in the team, it shouldn't be a case of waiting for a couple of weeks for him to come off the bench and get started. It should be hit the ground running in every position other than goalkeeper, it seems.
Well, again, I think it's credit to Neill Collins for being able to use that network he's built up over time. We've already seen it with Frankie Dabo and Cody David both coming in from down south, that he's willing to take the opportunity to give guys a chance. Now, one of the things that's been sort of picked up upon, I was asking on the new Twitter alternative that is Blue Sky, which is filled with far less right-wing nonsense and general anger. Speaking with it's an Irish fan that stays in New York who basically follows like the American professional leagues over there. effectively said that he would be comfortable playing in the back three. Scott's probably got a shiver running down his spine right now, but that he's generally been used as a utility player. He can play at centre back, can play at wing backs, and I know that he spoke about that in his interview. But yeah, just Allan, to come to you, I did actually listen to a bit of on Twitter, a couple of Tampa Bay fans, and they were quite scathing about the level that Rovers play at, sort of suggesting that the USAL, I think it is Championship, I believe, that their level, the Scottish Championship is going to be a very big step down for Jordan Doherty. What are your thoughts on that? Well, creating a dog pile to go on these lads.
It's hard to say. I mean, to be honest, I probably interpreted what they said a little bit differently, and I was kind of taking it at that they thought that Doherty was too good. It's too good for a level. Not that their level's better than ours, and that they were probably suggesting he was. I think it was just more they thought if he was coming over here, he probably could have got a Premiership team. They referenced Dan Casey, who at Motherwell, who I think used to play for them as well. So I'm going to give them the benefit of some incredible doubt that's kind of what they were saying. But you know what? If it is the case, if he is a level above us, brilliant. We get to benefit from him while he's here, and we maybe get a wee fee for him moving on if that is the case. Or as the guys turned around and kind of finished their wee piece with, said they'd actually hoped that he could get us promoted. Which, don't get me wrong, I don't think bringing in one defender / defensive midfielder is the thing that's going to get us kind of up into the Premiership. But if it helps, it fair enough. The only other kind of notable thing I think from the signing was that it literally the welcome to Rovers tweet came out of nowhere. There was no little kind of weather update tweet or anything beforehand, which I have to say is brilliant. Because if they're suggesting that they're going to stop doing that, we won't then have to deal with 25 tweets every single day in January saying, "How's the weather, Rovers admin?" So because it got a little bit tedious after a while.
Probably because it's going to be piss in January.
Well, there's that as well.
Yeah, that's very true. My one point of contention, Allan, is that clearly, as these people are from Florida and they do spend half their time wrestling alligators, they've obviously got to be complete lunatics. So we can't really take anything too seriously from them. But I think that's fair. And I think you've got to take it with that. I would always be of the opinion, I think that people over here are going to be quite dismissive of the soccer leagues that they have over in America, especially as soon as you get out the MLS and go down to that second tier. I think people here will be very, very dismissive, whereas on their side they'll probably look at it on the same token.
If you look at the Saudi Arabia League, for example, each team have maybe half a dozen top class players that have played at the highest level, and the rest of the team are guys that would probably struggle to get a game in League One or League Two here. I suspect that level in America is probably similar, and that each team have probably got a few guys. They'll have there'll be all sorts of kind of salary scales and everything that they have to stick to, and they'll have a few guys who've maybe played at kind of lower league levels in England or something like that, and the rest of them will just be kind of jobbers who've not got picked up in the MLS draft and who are kind of still desperately trying to kind of make it. Oh, and look, I remember reading about the Tampa Bay Rowdies when Collins came over, and I think they pay all right. I think their players are on about $100,000 a year or something like that. So they're paying decent money. So they'll probably have a reasonable kind of level there. I think their crowds are probably around about Scottish Championship level as well. They've even got a weird corner stand for what I remember looking at them, so you'll feel right at home.
Yeah, well, Neill Collins probably looked at ours and just thought, I know the setup here. I'm used to this. So yeah. Anyway, we'll move ahead to Saturday's game. Looking ahead to our visit to Falkirk. Just to start with yourself, Carol. Obviously, we beat Falkirk earlier on in the season to end that, frankly, incredible run that they had going. That continued on out of League One, start the season so strongly. Are you quite surprised that they've managed to keep going so strong since that game, where they've only lost the once to away to Livingston, and that's been it since then? They've just retained their spot at the top of the table. Have you been quite surprised by that? Did you maybe expect a bit of a stutter, or were you expecting them to be just going
I'm
great guns.
This is going to be snipped again. I'm expecting the stutter to be post-Christmas.
You're going to be so popular down in Grangemouth after this, Cara.
Well, it's one of the advantages of living a few thousand kilometres away. Come and get me if you think you're hard enough and have enough money for the Ryanair flights at this time of year. That's all I'm going to say. I think that I'm not surprised that they've kept up the momentum. I will be surprised if they can keep it up through. I'm going to pick up on what Scott says about the weather not probably being the best in January. It makes it a very hiccupy kind of month. We'll see. If they're still doing it in February, March, yes, I will eat my words in humble pie. But yeah,
I'm probably of the opposite camp. I think that they are going to be very similar to the Arbroath team that beat us to the League One title a few years back, where you keep thinking they're going to have a little bit of a stutter at some point, and then it just never comes, and then they just end up going forward. Albeit, I do think that Livingston are actually a bit close. I know that Livingston have got that game in hand. They're probably a bit closer for comfort than Falkirk might have hoped at this point in the season, given where they're at. Without a doubt, it's going to be a very tough game from the Rovers' perspective, but at the same time, I still think that we should be optimistic going in. However, though, Allan, John McGlynn's going to have the likes of Callum Morrison, Russ McKeever, Aidan Nesbitt's back on full fitness. I think that it might be one where Dylan Tate potentially misses out through suspension, but that would mean Finn Yates moves into the midfield. Are you maybe expecting a bit more than what we saw at Starks from Falkirk, given their sort of injury picture at that point, without hyping them up too much?
They'll probably feel like they've got something to prove after that. You know, they've kind of said, they said in interviews and stuff, they didn't play well. They didn't have a shot on target in the game. You know, they were far from their best. I like to think some of that was down to us, the way we played. But yeah, I mean, they'll certainly be fired up for it. They'll feel like they've got something to prove. But you'd like to think we would be as well. You know, we've kind of. It's hard to kind of tell, isn't it? Because you can't really take too much for last week. So I don't actually know what kind of form we're on. That's the problem. You know, for the last kind of game against a team at our level was Morton, where first half we were, utter dog meat. Second half we looked really, really good, and then still managed to throw it away. So I just genuinely don't know what kind of form we're on just now, which makes prediction really, really hard. Which is not great because that's part of what we're on here to do. So, but yeah, I mean, as kind of going back to your original question, yeah, I think Falkirk will certainly be up for it. And if Tate is out, that'll be interesting because people say Falkirk will struggle when they get a few injuries. They've had quite a few injuries to what you would class as important players.
Yeah.
But I think as last season with us showed, we had plenty of injuries during the first half of the season, but we just kept going. It was when Sam Stanton went out. And that's when you realise just who your key player is, that things kind of fell apart for us. So you wonder if they lost Dylan Tate for a wee while or Brad Spencer, maybe it would have more of an effect on some of the others. I don't know. John McGlynn just seems a different animal nowadays, doesn't he, unfortunately? He's not had his Cox going back collapse. What's that all about?
Christmas. Says it's Christmas collapse. That's what we're hoping for. John McGlynn's Christmas collapse.
Well, Scott, we'll take a look at the other side of that duo because Brad Spencer seems to be one of the players that the Falkirk fans they're obviously speaking, as we know, a very good midfielder, singing his praises this season given the way that he's started the campaign. How important do you think it is that we're keeping him quiet like we did in the first game at Starks Park?
I would say it's one of the sort of key battles, if you want to call it, on Saturday, to be honest, will be the middle of the park. And I mean, if we can get Sam Stanton pushing up onto the likes of Spencer and then even into the centre of defence and really putting them under pressure, because I mean, Falkirk are a good football inside. Like, everybody's seen them play. Everybody knows what McGlynn can do. Well, McGlynn 2.0 can do anyway. So everybody knows what to expect. If you give them time on the ball, like East Kilbride did at times on Monday night, they're just going to pass around you. But if you're in their face, they've got players like Dylan Tate and Spencer's got a bit of it as well. See if you get in their face. When we had them as our players, they didn't like it when another team got in your face. And we seen it even at our place in September, was it we played them? And again, any time that you were kind of in their face, they were kind of no happy with you or pushing you back and stuff like that. If that's what it takes to kind of put them off their game, let's do it. I mean, it's anything to try and win a game of football at the end of the day. But I think, at the same time, we've still got to try and play our own sort of game at the same time. You can't just be focused on purely Falkirk, because, I mean, that's actually something I think that Falkirk and McGlynn do really well, is they didn't really focus on who they're playing. I mean, I know that Cy Ferry and Open Goal went and did a full day that they went to Falkirk and watched them training, showed what McGlynn does and sort of his tactics and stuff. Didn't go into obviously every tactic, but it just showed you what they do. And the first thing that he mentioned was, we don't even really focus on the team that we're playing. At the end of the day, they've got to focus on themselves, because that's who's going to win them the game. So if we can do the same, then that's great. But as you say, I think if we can shut down Spencer, he's even added goals this season, which I was a little bit surprised to see. He's already on 5 or 6 goals. But I get that he's taken a few penalties as well. But at the end of the day, so's Dylan Easton. So they all tally up. So I think, if we can definitely win that midfield battle, I think we're going to be in for a decent 90 minutes anyway.
Yeah, I think that it's tough to look at their squad, and you know that they're going to be playing it, but I think as well you've got to give them a bit of credit as well, Allan, because they're the type of team that you look at their back line, and they've obviously brought in Keelan Adams, who's done tremendously well at right back. He came in from Cumbernauld Cokes. They will have, I'd imagine that the boy Graham that came in from Dundee in the summer on loan, he would have been sort of withheld due to Dundee's request. And then you'll have him next to Henderson and McCann at left back. Quite a formidable defence, generally, when you look at it. Do you think that means that we've got to be quite smart about how we're using the ball, maybe potentially in terms of using our sort of target men, because it could potentially end up in a bit of a sort of ding-dong battle there? Or do you think it's a game to try and, as Scott says, keep it in on the deck, get in their faces, see what we can do?
I think we need to do both. I think, the defence has done, defensively they've done very well this season. So I think we need to have different attacking options. So, we need to be able to kind of try and pass through them, play balls into the channel to guys like Easton, Paulette, Gibson, whoever's kind of playing in those positions, or just kind of driving through with someone like Stanton. But I think we also, having someone like Jack Hamilton up there, you've also got the option of kind of going long, whether it's kind of long for him to kind of nod it on to one of the guys in the channels, or even if you can get a ball over the top into a channel to someone like Gibson, like we did last week, Hamilton could get in the middle to get on the end of it. So I think we need to keep them guessing. We don't want their defence saying, all right, they're just going to go along to Hamilton, or everyone's going to come through Easton. We need to have 2 or 3 or 4, lots of different kind of attacking options against them, because they're top of the league for a reason. I don't like saying nice things about them, especially because I know my mate Scott is going to be watching this just to see what I say about Falkirk. But
Scott, come on, man. It's
I do mean watching as well. I watch it on YouTube. Weird.
That's twice as bad. Find his username and ban him. It's. I think you're absolutely right though in what you're saying. We Rovers as well as Falkirk, I guess both teams have the ability to sort of mix it up. You've got to give Falkirk, I think, a bit of credit in terms of the way that they've managed to sort of use McKeever. I know that Duncan had sort of touched on this in an earlier episode and sort of said that people, you look at him and you probably when he first signed, I think a lot of people would have probably looked at that signing quite dismissively and says, McKeever, big lump of a sort of forward. But then when you see him actually how he's getting used, he does so well just in terms of his work on the ball and off it as well. But yeah, it's they've also got the talismanic figure at the moment appears to have turned into Ethan Rosscarroll. Ethan Ross, obviously, a very familiar figure to us. Hitting the levels that we all knew that he could. Are you not really much of a shock to see that, or a bit surprised?
Yeah, because he had so much potential. That seemed to be what followed Ethan Ross around. Oh, what he could do. He shows so much potential, and I think finally he's showing it. And like Allan says, Falkirk aren't the top for any other reason other than they are quite good. With picking up on the should we get in their face, as long as we don't get anybody sent off, that's fine. That's my only concern is this game's going to be quite aggressive, is that somebody, not naming any names, gets a little bit mouthy and gets sent off, because we won't survive with 10. No way will we survive with 10.
You say
so
that,
we have to keep.
In our last visit to the Falkirk Stadium, we finished the game with 10 men, and we managed to get a win there. Ironically, it was Ethan Ross that got the winner. So, you know.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, that's not the best omen.
Yeah, exactly. Just to stick with yourself, Carol, the social media of it all. Just how much did you enjoy that earlier this season, and how much do you think that's got that? I know it's a cliched point, and it's very trite, and we touch on it all the time, but how much do you think Falkirk will be sort of looking at that and saying, yeah, we've got to
do you know what? I'd completely forgotten about that, and now you've reminded me. I'm like,
I don't think they have.
Comic. No. So, I'm hoping that it's pinned in certain people's toilets somewhere to remind them as motivation. But yeah, and I hope there's another one sitting ready and waiting.
Oh,
I'm sure there will be.
Oh.
Allan.
Bear in mind, John McGlynn isn't James McPake, so he's not quite as much of a man-child as he is. So hopefully it's, whereas the fans, and certainly the Falkirk Daft podcast will be all over it if they get the result. Where's your cartoons now, admin?
There's still, we get that any other given week, so that's the best bit about it.
Grown men getting their knickers in a twist over a cartoon is just
brilliant.
Still brilliant to me.
There was I can't remember what it was, but Rovers put out a tweet quite recently, and I think it was something like well after a match, though. It was something like just completely off the field related. And there's a Partick Thistle fan in there, like, where's a cartoon for this? And it was like completely unrelated. You're thinking, okay, right.
You still get United fans a year later as well. It's like,
get
over it, man. You're fourth in the Premiership.
It's a good laugh. I've enjoyed how their support are now lapping up all these last-minute winners that they seem to have scored, and it's changed their tune from where it was this time last year. Scott, what's your thoughts on the whole social media of it all? Are you just thinking the players will likely just be getting on with it and not too worried about that side of things?
Aye, I mean, you hear it for all the coaching staffs and stuff like that when you hear them getting interviewed and stuff. They kind of, as rightly do, they really just leave it to the fans to get themselves worked up about whatever it is that fans get worked up about, to be honest. I mean, when it comes to Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is that people are on, I mean, anybody that takes it serious really needs to have a look at themselves, to be fair. But I think it's just, to be honest, it is a good laugh. I mean, last season, obviously, we've seen a lot more of them because we were doing so well, and it was like so dramatic, late winners, and then it was just like, oh, I wonder what the cartoon's going to be this week and such like that. I mean, they've added it in this year of when they've done a cartoon even before the game, and then we've got the result, like the one with Sean Byrne when we beat Ayr, and it was like, that was a really good one, and it made sense and stuff like that. So they clearly really think about it, but no, to be honest, I don't really see McGlynn ever bothering about it. To be fair, I'm not even really sure he would have bothered about the fact that they did it before. He'll just get on with it, and I'm sure he's probably not even had to tell his players to really get on with it, because they know it's just a bit of laugh for the fans more than anything.
I would love to see what happened if John McGlynn joined Twitter. That would be an experiment for the ages, just to see who he follows and what he follows.
I genuinely think it would turn into like somebody created, was it last year or the year before? like it was either a no context or just a James Milner account, and it's because it was after he said
James Milner.
Yeah, it was. Aye, that was it. And he's like, and it'll say,
it's been on the
just
go
pouring
for
a
years,
cup of tea, or it's just the most boring stuff he's doing. I just like that's what I would imagine John McGlynn does.
I would just stuff like a washing line full of baseball caps would be
snotty hankies.
Well, no hankies for him apparently, based on the social media clips. He caught in 4K with that one, John. It's unfortunate timing on John McGlynn's part. Got to say, it's just he's such a good person to have involved in terms of Scottish football, given you look at the story that he's had in terms of like where he's came from, working his way through Hearts, comes to us, got us out the mire twice. I know that there was a whole, obviously, the situation in terms of the David Goodwillie signing, but yeah, just the work that he's done in terms of Falkirk and like how he's gone to Celtic and just reinvented himself. I think it's a really admirable trait in terms of what he's done, but that's not taking away the fact that I really hope that we get one right up done on Saturday. But anyway, let's turn it to the focus back to our own side, because that's what we're here to do. So yeah, Carol, Allan touched on this a bit before, but how hopeful are you that we've had the cup game through at Linlithgow, we've had a postponement as well, the game against Accies. Do you think that offers us a bit of a fresh start in terms of the league? Or I know that I've mentioned it before, is it a bit of a help or a hindrance, do you think?
I think it'll be a help. I think we'll have some fresh legs and fresh minds. Yeah, it's difficult to pick up on the form, but hopefully it's more positivity. I think that's what we have to hope for, is that they are more positive when they go on the pitch, they believe in themselves, and that the break has maybe given them a bit more, sounds very cliche, but we are the home of cliches, bonding time. Yeah, I think hopefully it will help.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that, I mean, when you look at the results that they've had over the last month or so, generally they've been very positive. I'd like to think the Morton game's a bit of an anomaly like that, and it was a setback, but not a complete breakdown in terms of it. And again, for all the you look at some of the results in the Cup, and a lot of teams came through unconvincingly against non-league sides, so they did it in a manner that was maybe sort of, I would have really hoped that we'd done more. We did everything that we could, and we've beat them 4-0. You can't ask really for much more than that. And hopefully the squad can take a lot of confidence from it, especially with the performance that we put in against Falkirk the first time. Just in terms of personnel, Scott, there's now a bit of a situation where there's the dilemma. Do you bring back in Lewis Stevenson to start this one, or are you going to be keeping Liam Dick out there? Potentially slap an armband on him, get that unbeaten captain on the go. The unbeaten captain against the unbeaten record at home could be one for the ages.
I get there's one person in Ayrshire that would love that, but I'm sorry, he's not taking my captain off. Scott Brown has got to be middle of the park with an armband, taking us forward. But I think in terms of that left back position, I think Dicko's done everything he could last week in terms of, I thought he actually got forward at times, putting a few decent sort of low crosses as well, and kind of pinned back the sort of Linlithgow fullback as well. But I just feel that Stevenson gives you so much experience in that side, and I know we've been saying it with Hanlon as well, like these sort of guys, they've been in such big games with a lot of pressure on them. This is quite a big game. I would argue and say, like, these next two games, for us anyway, with Falkirk and Dunfermline, although they're at opposite sides of the table, these two games are probably going to tell us really, and I feel like I've said this the last couple of podcasts, this is probably going to decide where we're going to end up this season. If we can if we got 4 points out of these next two games, I think that would, no matter if it's what way you get the 4 points, that would be a very good, successful fortnight for us if we could get 4 points out of 6. I just think, we just need to try and not if we were to go a goal down, we've noticed before where like the heads have dropped and you're going, well, we've not even looked like getting back into it, especially away from home. But I think the last two sort of away games with Partick and then with Linlithgow as well, I get Linlithgow's a sort of lower league team, but at the end of the day, we've still went and got positive results, and at the end, we also didn't start either game that great. So I think we have sort of overcame a little bit there, but I personally would go with Lewis Stevenson at left back. I think he also offers you slightly better pace and slightly better technical ability on the ball, and we all know how good our technical side. Falkirk aren't going to be lumping balls over the top. If that was the case, you could go and say that Dicko might be the better option, but I just think the type of game it is that Lewis Stevenson probably gives you the best option in that position.
Yeah, I think it's a really big question, particularly given the sort of options that Falkirk have got out wide. I mean, Ethan Ross for a starter, we've already spoken about him, and we know that he can do damage. Even in the last game at Starks, he was probably the one player that stood out for Falkirk. I think had that shot that went just wide of the post in the first half. And then on top of that, you bring back in a fully fit Calvin Miller into the team, and then you've got Callum Morrison as well, who was last season's top goal scorer, I think, in all of the SPFL. So it's a very big game for the fullbacks in particular, Allan. Frankie Dabo, biggest game for him yet?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is where we kind of see what he's made of at this level. Because he's going to... I mean, he came under a bit of pressure against Partick as well, and first half wasn't brilliant, but, you know, he wasn't helped with the fact that, you know, the guys behind them weren't having particularly good games, and nothing was sticking to the guys in front of him. So it was almost like he was getting missed out rather than he was kind of doing anything particularly badly. You've got to hope that's not the case this time, and I think it's going to be a real test for him. You know, a big crowd away from home. Obviously, we don't know what his situation is. We don't know if he's. You've got to imagine we've offered him a deal. Mm-hmm. You don't know what else he's got kind of on the table. So, I mean, potentially he's playing for his next move. So whether it's a contract with us or that, so it is definitely a big game for him. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt he's going to start if he's fit. Because Kieran Freeman, I don't even know if he's still in the country. Like,
well,
if we can put a wee blonde wig on Jordan Doherty and just pretend he's Kieran Freeman and maybe try and bring him in early.
It's probably not quite as bold as having Aidan Connolly up top, but you're getting into that territory there, Allan. But yes, I think that, I mean, with Freeman, it's one of those ones where you're going to have to be very patient and just see what happens for him. Because, again, Dabo's came in, and by and large, again, not completely without criticism at points, but generally, I think he's looked at an exceptionally solid player. Very robust, very hard to win the ball back off of, and just very aggressive going forward as well. So yeah, keen to see how he performs, particularly given that Falkirk's strength does seem to be going in terms of the wider positions. Carol, just to come back to you, just with the centre half situation. So Paul Hanlon seems to be the sort of stick on there. But who do you think is going to be partnering him? Do you think it will stick with Murray, or do you think Fordyce will be brought in for this one?
I think he'll stick with Murray.
Yeah.
I think he's going to. Yeah, I think just size, shape, solidness. Yeah, I think we need to be intelligent on the ball, intelligent in the mind, and intelligent in temperament on Saturday. And I think you and Murray will bring that.
Or does he go with both?
Three at the back.
Wig talk and well, now
it's three at the back, more of a jump than a wig. Time will tell. Moving up the pitch, Scott, do you think Sean Byrne plays for him in this game, given how we need to sort of marshal the midfield, particularly with Falkirk's creativity?
Yeah, I would actually bring him back in for this game. He did get, I'm not sure I would even call it dropped. He was on the bench anyway on last Saturday, and I think nearly all of us kind of said we would make that change of Matthews in for Burn, just on the type of game really it was going to be itself. And I think this game is more suited to Sean Byrne than it is to Ross Matthews. So again, I would just go and make that switch for last weekend and just bring Byrne back. I think Byrne gives you plenty in terms of if you're needing to control a game, if you're needing to set your own sort of stamp on a game, he can put the foot on the ball, give it to the better or sort of more creative players, and get the likes of Easton and Stanton driving at players, even the wide players, whoever we go with as well. I think he's quite key to also allowing Scott Brown to kind of join in with attacks as well at times. Whereas if you've got like a Matthews, I think Brown seems to be slightly more hesitant whether to be the sort of more defensive one out of the two of them, but he knows for a fact that Byrne's going to be that sitter and he's allowed to then go and do what he wants to do as well. So I think more than anything, Byrne probably brings the better in Scott Brown as well. So that's another reason that I would go with Byrne this weekend as well.
Yeah. And Allan, just to come back to you, a lot of the podcasts that we've done over the last maybe, 6 or 7 weeks, I feel like we've spoken a bit about like who are going to be the attacking options and going forward. Do you think that Neill Collins has maybe had his mind made up for him by the fact that you saw goals for Lewis Gibson and then a double for Dylan Easton, and then on top of that you're adding in the goal for Jack Hamilton later on? Do you think that makes his decision a lot easier? Maybe Finlay Pollock and Jamieson having to now be a bit patient to get straight back into the team, and the same goes for Cody David as well.
Does it make his decision easier? Probably not, because he knows what Pollock can do. So it probably, if anything, it probably makes the decision harder. I think it pushes the decision in someone like Gibson's favour.
Yeah.
Again, it's the massive caveat of the level of team he was playing against last week, but even kind of going back to the kind of previous couple of games against Morton and Partick, he made a difference when he came on. That directness that he has. I don't actually think he's even that quick. He just looks like he is because he's so direct. He just gets in and run, and he just links up really well with other players. So I think, it probably has kind of tipped the scales in his favour a wee bit. I mean, Dylan Easton's probably always going to play. He's getting back towards his best. So, and at his best, he is one of the best players in this division. There's no doubt about it. So if he's on form, he plays, and you don't leave out Sam Stanton if he's fit. You just don't. So that probably pushes Easton out to the left. So you're only really looking at of that kind of three sitting behind the striker. There's probably only one position up for grabs, and for me at the moment it's Gibson's, and there's no reason for him to lose it. And then in the front position, I think you just have to bring Jack Hamilton in. I think David did okay last week, again at that level, but he's not. I don't think he's fit enough at the moment to start a game against a team like Falkirk, where you're going to need a really good hour out of him. By all means, bring him on for the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes when the defence are a wee bit tired. But I think you need Hamilton's work rate and his presence in a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Hamilton was the player that got, of course, the winner from the penalty spot in the last game. And I think last time about we would have swapped him off for he came off for Frankie Dabo, but by that point we had Lewis Jamieson on the pitch, so it would have just been sort of like a tactical reshuffle about. I'd fully agree with that. I think that you're really looking at Jack Hamilton being your main man up top, and he's. I know that Scott had sort of said about him needing to get a goal last week, which of course he did, but in general I feel like over the last maybe 6 or 7 games he's started getting in among the goals, as we'd expect. And if you can put it into that danger area, he's going to cause real problems for Henderson and Graham, you'd hope. And with the players that we've got, the likes of having Gibson, Easton, being able to go in there. I mean, that first game, Dylan Easton was just exceptional against Falkirk. he really was truly brilliant. I mean, the fact that you had Jordan that does the social media work, I believe it was him, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was putting together that clip of just Dylan Easton on the ball, just casually, just being able to control it, bring it away, and just taking it past players and spraying off passes. Just brilliant to watch. So I feel like when you look back to that game, there's every reason to take a lot of confidence from it. I know that Falkirk will be improved, but I think that so can we in terms of it. And ideally, by full time, you've got photos and videos of Kevin Dabrowski giving the big fist pumps in front of the away end and our travelling support. So we'll move into our lineups and predictions. So I'll start off with yourself, Carol, because I know that you took the time to do one before.
So, like Scott says, I think Liam Dick is not the player for this game. So I would swap him out for Stevenson. So Stevenson, Ewan Murray, Hanlon, Dabo, Byrne, Brown. It says I don't know whether to start Gibson or not. This is the thing I've got is because I think it would do him good. I think he would be up for it because I think this is a show game, and I think Easton is going to love it. He's a showman. He's going to love this stage. But will Gibson love it or will Paul? Oh, Gibson, Stanton, Hamilton. There we go.
I'm sure I have a start because Willie Gibson, of course, used to play for Falkirk briefly, I believe, before walking out on them. I'm sure that their fans would have had abuse for his father as an ex-Dunfermline player as well. So it's all written for the story for his son to go up and fuck up their title challenge. So send in Lewis and hopefully he can cause a bit of chaos and a classic old school story there for the ages. Scott, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too dissimilar. I don't think for Carroll's lineup. To be fair, I've actually been saying to myself all week. I actually think Collins is going to play a back three on Saturday. I think he's going to try something different against Falkirk. I wouldn't, but I think he is going to because I think you see like the game against Ayr where he just kind of does it out of nowhere in terms of, and it's against a team that was like high up in the table, a team that everybody thought, oh well, we'll do well to get a result because we just played on the Tuesday night as well. I mean, we've not played since last weekend, but I think this is going to be a game where we might see something different again for Collins, just to keep McGlynn guessing, I suppose. But
yep.
But I would go with just the sort of usual 4-2-3-1 with Dabo, Murray, Hanlon, and then Stevenson in for Dick as well, and then Bruni and Byrne is the sort of two in midfield. We're starting just in front of them, Gibson on the right, Easton on the left, and then I would bring Hamilton back in for Cody David as well. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be against seeing maybe David starting again, but I just think I kind of agree with Allan. I think you're probably wanting somebody like Hamilton who's going to give you a little bit more movement and a little bit more sort of link-up play for a longer period of time, and then David can maybe come on for 15-20 minutes near the end, try and ruffle a few feathers and get a few fills and get us up the park if we're needing a goal or even just to close out a game or whatever. So, yeah, that's the sort of lineup I would go with.
And Allan, how about for you?
So, if my memory is correct, I think Scott and Carol actually ended up going for the same lineup there, and I would do the same. We could be on for a
Boring.
here. A few kind of notable things. Kev, I think none of us are even mentioning Kev now. I think part of that is if you're going to get dropped for any game, you're getting dropped for Linlithgow. So if you're getting played in Linlithgow away, you're still very much the number one. And he had a clean sheet, albeit he probably could have had his slippers on and a cup of tea, and I think he would have still kept a clean sheet because as much as Linlithgow did a few things early on, I don't think Kev really had much to do. But yeah, he'll still gain some confidence from that because that's the kind of guy he is. I agree with keeping Murray and Hanlon together. And definitely agree with bringing Byrne back in. And I think this is the game where you basically say, right, Sean, you didn't cross this imaginary line here. Your job is to sit in front of that defence and protect them. You don't need to get forward because you've got Brown and Stanton there who will cover every blade of Astro on the pitch. Like they will. You don't need to do anything else. You're there to spoil, basically, spoil their attacks, and that's the job. And then I think it also allows the rest of them to kind of get forward and attack. And that's that. If you're taking them as a kind of a front four with kind of sort of Brown in there behind them as well, that's a hell of an attacking kind of force there potentially. If they're all in form, they could be pretty special to watch, I think, at this level.
Yeah, I unsurprisingly, I'm completely in the same boat as all three of you. I'd go so far as to say is that lineup should be the sort of standard lineup that we should be looking to be starting with, ongoing, until.
You know, the fact that time that everyone has agreed with the same lineup means there's absolutely no chance that's going to be the lineup.
Oh, we are 100% going to back three. Back three is coming, and John McGlynn will have done hundreds of video analysis on it, and then Neill Collins will go, actually, I really do like that back three though. And you just
some of us, he was in the stand taking photos of how we were setting up at corners last weekend or something.
Aye. I think it was might even.
He can look at us for corners all he wants because we're mince at them.
Exactly. I mean, he's been listening to the podcast. That's what it's like. Cliches and mince corners. That's what we talk about.
Well, fingers crossed that it's not experiencing that at the weekend.
Yeah.
But,
no.
Aye.
And if Scott Byrne, if you want to sit back and you find that you want to lob it just from one end of the pitch to the other, Sean Byrne, sorry, and lob it and score a goal, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
It's happened so often. I mean, when he took that shot against, who was it against? It was against Morton.
Aye.
I was Sean. Bold.
Yeah.
Right, and for predictions, Scott.
I touched on it earlier. If we can the next fortnight get 4 points out of 6, I think I'll take a point, to be honest, if you game it now on Saturday. So I'll go quite a feisty 1-1. I think there could be. I think it is going to be a good game, but I think it could get quite feisty, especially late in the game if it's still all tied going into sort of the last 10 minutes. So I'll go 1-1.
Carol?
Oh, I might as well just dig myself a bigger hole. 3-1 Rovers.
It's a heat wave. You're suffering sunstroke over there in Barcelona. Come on.
I was swimming in this outdoor pool today in the 18 degrees sunshine. I am fully vitamin D happiness up.
Carol, we're going to send you off to the lunatics in Florida with alligators wrestling.
It's going to be 2-1 Rovers at half time and 3-1 by the end of the game.
I'd 100% take it, but yeah, I'd be surprised if that happened, but pleasantly surprised. And Allan?
I agree with Scott that I would, at this moment in time, I would take a point. Yeah. But the ridiculous optimist that I always am doesn't allow myself to predict that, so I'm going to go 2-1 Rovers.
Yeah, I was thinking 2-1 Rovers myself. So we've brilliant analytics here on this podcast. Myself and Allan have both picked the same lineup and the same prediction. So I did somehow stumble onto the correct prediction last week. So if lightning strikes twice, then yeah, I'm very, very confused if that happens. Right, we will, of course, because it is a preview, round off with a game of Should McStay or Should Dargo. So I will ask 6 questions about a current or former Raith Rovers player. Carol's already shaking her head. And yeah,
it's no less.
If you can guess away, and yeah.
Robbie might have been playing Scrabble last night, though.
Oh, no. Yeah, could be. Well, it's Wham! Last Christmas. Goodness knows what musical clue we're going to get right now.
See last week when the first word that came out of Leslie's mouth was Pocahontas. I actually had to pause because I was just laughing for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't it ideal?
No.
Right. Clue number 1. I have featured for 6 clubs in Scotland across the Championship, League 1 and League 2.
Now, is he only saying that, and he could have also played top flight, but he's only included 6 clubs?
Any opening bids?
Who's played for a few clubs? Christian Nadi.
Any opening bids from Carol?
I'm going to say Ian Davidson, but I know he's not played for enough clubs. I'm sure there's not enough.
Just pulling a name out there, Armandoni.
Nadi and Oni. Oof. Clue number 2. I first played against Raith in 2005, and I last appeared in a squad against them in 2021.
Fairly certain it's no Armandoni. 2021, so 2021, so we're back up in the Championship.
Lost. And his last time he played
Someone who
against
played
us was
for-
2021.
Yes. He was in a squad against us.
Oh, so didn't play against us, but just in a squad
Yeah,
against
just
us.
in a squad against us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know why. This just tells you that your brain goes to hell in this game. I was about to come out with somebody that hasn't even played for the Rovers there. I was just about to go with somebody that I thought played in
it's happened, to be fair.
I was about to come out with somebody
Is it- He played for us in 2000. Yeah.
I was about to say
No,
somebody that's
he's gone.
people who played against us early 2000s, and then somebody that was kind of getting close to retirement age in 2021. And I was like, wait a second, his name played for us.
So just to recap, featured for 6 clubs in Scotland in the Championship, League 1 and League 2. And they first played against Raith in 2005, and they last appeared in a squad against us in 2021.
I'll stick with Nadi, but I don't really remember him playing it anywhere near us, sort of in recent seasons, you know.
Got nothing new. It's not Armandoni because he was definitely not playing in the Championship in 2021. But just because I've got nothing else to give at the moment, I'll stick with him.
Okay. Carol?
Nope, mine's gone blank. Next clue. I
Okay.
can't even remember my own name at the moment.
Clue 3. I appeared 191 times for Raith Rovers.
Oh, so we've got a wee bit possibly of a legend then. That's a fair amount of.
So someone who left us just before he was in the squad against us. So who bailed on us just to?
So 191 games for us.
Yes. I should add, according to Wikipedia.
That reliable source.
That's a fair amount of time.
I'm going to go.
He's not. The annoying thing
for-
is he's not added if this is more than one time though.
I'm going to go for the witch, David McGlynn.
David McGlynn.
Oh, good call.
I'm sure he was still hanging about squads as a sub goalie back in about 2021.
Scott Carroll.
I'm
Think
struggling.
of really old players now. And like what players do I think are old but actually younger than I am? Sort of age.
You've got to think this boy's now obviously retired as well, so
Yeah.
I know it's not what I've got as my answer now, but I can't really even think of a name now and it's bad because you would think somebody that's played that amount of games, like you could start naming players that's played that many times for the club.
No.
Would you like for clue
Yeah.
4? I featured in both McGlynn eras.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with my answer.
Okay.
I think you're right.
That's a decent shout, to be fair. He's played for a few lower league clubs.
Because he never went full time, did he? He always did part time.
Any other bids?
He had his sports science kind of thing as well, didn't he? He was a sports science lecturer.
He was a
college.
lecturer, Oh, McGlynn. I'm going to change my answer now, but I'm still not even confident it's this either. Allan Walker.
Oh.
But I'm pretty certain he was only one McGlynn. I think he wasn't around long enough. Actually, now that I think about it, that's a stupid answer. I know he wasn't at the same time.
Clue 5. I was voted into the Hall of Fame by fans.
Yeah, I'm sticking with my answer. Might not be right, because I've got none better.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to jump on. I can only be McGarn. He's only done that many. How many appearances did you say, Robbie?
191. So 6 clubs in Scotland, Championship, League 1, League 2. 191 appearances for Rovers. They played against us first in 2005 and last appeared in a squad against us in 2021.
Was McGarn on loan to Falkirk in 2021?
Falkirk were at League 1 in 21, so they were still below us in the league, just for you, Scott.
I was going to say, there could have been every chance that we played like a cup game against somebody that maybe they were on the bench.
Good point, actually, yeah. Didn't
we,
the league runner.
Did we not play in 2021 Kelty in a pre-season game? And I'm sure he was around Kelty at that point.
I'll make it easy.
Kelty or Cowdenbeath?
I'll make it easy for you because clue 6. I'm most known for high-profile derby saves and my triple save against Ayr United.
I finally got one. I finally got one.
And yes, he was at Falkirk. He went to Falkirk on loan because Gary Holt's son got cup tied, and he went on loan to Falkirk, and we played them in the Scottish Cup. So yeah, well done, Allan. Really.
And he would have played in the Premier League if John McGlynn hadn't bizarrely have dropped him for the other Andy McNeil.
I've forgotten about that.
Well, maybe not. We'd already blown it before that game, but that's not the point. We still like to think it.
Every chance he could have if he was willing to give up his job. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, well, you look at it,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
you look at that season, and Ayr United fans were constantly going on about Craig Sampson, who went on to St Mirren, and McGurn was a better goalkeeper than him. And
that triple save
Sampson still got a call up for Scotland.
The triple save against there, and the one against Dunfermline just before Castlenovo's goal.
Yeah,
I remember was it Jim McIntyre was the Dunfermline manager, wasn't it? And he was adamant afterwards that it was actually a goal, that it was over the line, because he just refused to believe that McGurn had managed to save it.
Yeah,
it was And I think that save actually gets better just because of what happened right after it. I mean, I think if you watch the TV footage, you can see me jumping about like an absolute lunatic. And my wife, who we hadn't been together all that long, but at that point was probably looking, going, what the hell have I just got together with?
That was a truly brilliant derby to go to. I'd actually broken my collarbone the week before. So see, celebrating that in a sling. But there was a young lad who will now probably be in about his 20s, which is a thoroughly depressing thought. Maybe not, but it's certainly a late teen, who's turned around and said to his dad when Grant Murray scored that absolute beauty into the top corner from all of about 30 yards, turned to his dad and he goes, "But Dad, he never scores. Like, never scores." It's like, well, there we go.
It's mad, you forget about that, don't you? You forget about that Grant Murray goal, which is probably one of the best derby goals ever, possibly only beaten by that goal in the 5-1 kind of COVID season game.
Yeah.
But you forget about it just because of the way that the Castelnuovo goal happened, and because of his kind of cult hero status. But the Grant Murray goal was an absolute beauty.
You know who got sent off that day?
Willie Gibson, wasn't it?
Yeah, Lewis Gibson's dad. Funny how these things.
Game, actually.
Yeah, aye.
A few interesting red cards in derbies, aren't there? Dougie Hill for headbutting.
There was one that was never given that should have been. There was one that should have been given in the first minute, but it wasn't because it was the first minute, which was Josh Falkirk went on Eddie Malone.
Aye, just.
I'm pretty sure he drop kicked him.
Did Stephen Simmons not get sent off for diving as well? For a second, for diving.
Aye. Yeah, let's focus on the wonderful derby goals as opposed to the depressing thoughts of Rovers players getting sent off. Except for Dougie Hill's one was brilliant. That was it's the full laughter where he's just hands around the neck. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to listen. Of course, we will be back after this. The match against Falkirk will either on Sunday or Monday night, depending on what happens with our scheduling. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast this evening. And as well, if you can make sure, once again, just to reiterate this, if you can please check the link below for Kirkcaldy Foodbank's website, where you can find more information about their Christmas drive. This is something that we're really going to try and get behind as they're supporting the podcast and the local community. We really want to try and help them out as much as possible. So if you do get the opportunity, please make sure to check out. And if you can potentially afford the opportunity to be able to sponsor a meal for someone who's in a less privileged position at Christmas, we would be truly grateful. But in the meantime, thanks for listening and bye for now.